diplomats, guests, welcome to the SDGs conference in the margins of the United Nations General Assembly 78th session. I'm Cemre, Ulker, representative of Journalists and Writers Foundation to the UN Department of Global Communications. As we are convened today for the 8th annual SDGs conference, it is an utmost honor and pleasure to host you all. We are particularly thrilled this year with the great interest growing in attendance. Pretty sure that within a couple hours we will be full house at John Jay College Criminal Justice. But I would like to note that today's event is hybrid, so we have over 300 guests at Zoom joining us live from 45 different countries across the globe. So our sessions, panel discussions, will also be live streamed at Journalists and Writers Foundation's YouTube channel throughout the day. SDGs Conference 2030 will be hosting 21 notable speakers from 16 different member states, including ambassadors, UN high-level officers, courageous journalists, brave human rights experts, and transformative civil society leaders. So let's start the day with an introduction video to see the topics and agenda of the SDGs conference this year.
SDGs Conference 2023, Transforming Our World, September 20th, 2023. In the margins of the 78th session of the UN General Assembly, the Journalists and Writers Foundation and its global partners from 27 countries welcome you all to the 8th Annual SDGs Conference 2023, Transforming Our World, which aims to contribute to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The SDGs Conference is JWF's flagship event that creates a platform for diverse stakeholders to discuss the Global Agenda 2030, offering innovative solutions, strategies, and policy recommendations to advance the culture of peace, human rights, and sustainable development. With the themes of Transforming Our World, our distinguished high-level speakers, panelists, and UN ambassadors will discuss, analyze, and evaluate the progress made in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. As the world leaders are convening at the United Nations headquarters, the SDGs Conference will address the need to build a new momentum to increase progress and renew political commitments, while sharing challenges faced in the implementation of the SDGs. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says now is the time to re-embrace global solidarity, find ways to work together for the common good, and renew the social contract between governments and their people within societies. The SDGs Conference 2023 focuses on three major areas. 1. Building a new momentum towards the 2030 deadline for the SDGs. 2. Press freedom as an instrument to defend human rights for all. And 3. Widening gap between the erosion of democracy and the rise of autocracy. At the end of the SDGs conference, the JWF and its global partners will propose a framework for action for the next 7 years to improve local and national policies and practices based on the assessment of the progress made towards the achievement of the SDGs. We believe that providing innovative solutions, developing effective strategies, and offering policy recommendations will advance sustainable peace and development worldwide. The Journalists and Writers Foundation and its global partners remain committed to transforming our world through partnerships for the goals.
So UNJ is surely the busiest and most high-level critical engagement of the United Nations calendar, facilitating various levels of multilateral diplomacy. But however, the 78th session of the UNGA carries a particular importance to mark the beginning of a new phase of accelerated progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals with a call for an urgent transformative actions leading up to the 2030 deadline. And halfway through, the world is not on track to achieve the SDGs. And to boost the inclusive and gender-sensitive development processes, as UN Secretary-General calls, all stakeholders need to rethink, refocus, and recharge. As of today, given the fact that only about 15% of the SDGs are achieved, in addition to many targets which are in fact regressed compared to their origin back in 2015, we need a new UN 2.0, a vision of a modernized intergovernmental system, including a forward-thinking culture that enable development stakeholders to better contribute to the quest for the SDGs. And this year, the themes of the UN Commission on the Status of Women, the ECOSOC Youth Forum, High-Level Political Forum, SDG Summits, Secretary General's call for a rescue plan for the planet and people, in fact, paved the way for the UNGA 78, questioning how to boost this transformative shift into commitment, solidarity, financing, and action to put the global goals on a better path. And we will soon turn to our experts panelists as they will address three main working areas today: contemporary development trends, complexities, the challenges of sustainable peace, intersectionality between press freedom and expression, human rights, and lastly, erosion of democracies. Before we move on with the keynotes of our opening session, I would like to invite Mehmet Kilic, the president of the Journalist Emeritus Foundation, to deliver his remarks.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, dignitaries from the United Nations and the protocol, I welcome you all to the JWF 8th Annual SDGs Conference organized by the Journalists and Writers Foundation in collaboration with 52 NGOs from 27 countries. It is a distinct honor to stand before you today as we gather once again to address the pressing issues that shape our world. As we convene here today, the 78th session of the UN General Assembly is underway, bringing leaders and representatives from 193 member states to New York. This annual gathering, while marked by diplomacy and political posturing, also highlights the numerous global challenges that demand our collective leadership and action. Today, we find ourselves at a critical juncture. The world faces a multitude of interconnected challenges, from extreme poverty and climate change to the rapid advancements of artificial intelligence and the urgency to foster peace among great power tensions and destructive conflicts. Our global youth population seeks opportunities, skills, and hope. In this context, it is essential for us to remain engaged and committed to the values and goals that unite us as a global community. In the times of unprecedented challenges, our message is one, and that is unity and global partnerships. The past years have shown us that when the world comes together, we can overcome even the most daunting challenges and obstacles. It has also given us a reminder that no one can achieve anything alone. We must stand united as one world, leveraging the power of collaboration, diversity, and inclusion. This year's conference is especially significant as we mark the halfway to the deadline set for achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. While we celebrate the achievements made so far, it is essential to acknowledge the challenges we face. Recent reports indicate that, as my colleague underlined, only 15% of the SDG targets are on track to be reached by 2030, and over 500 million people may still live in extreme poverty. To succeed, we must demonstrate renewed political will backed by concrete actions and financial resources and global partnerships. As we gather here, we are also proud to announce the continuation of the Pioneers in SDGs Awards as one of the most prestigious and impactful flagship initiatives of the JWF. These awards recognize remarkable organizations and individuals whose innovative projects contribute to the attainment of the SDGs. Over the years, we witnessed impactful projects from 52 countries, each marking a different impact on their local communities. These unwavering commitment and dedication of these pioneers have been instrumental in creating a better world for all. This year, the Pioneers in SDGs Awards ceremony will take place next week, Wednesday, on September 27th, 2023, immediately following the SDGs conference. Our international jury, guided by the criteria of innovation, stakeholders, scope, and impact, will once again identify and commend the outstanding projects. It is through their efforts that we find inspiration and motivation to continue our pursuit of the SDGs. Additionally, we are also delighted to share with you that this year we have introduced a new category under the awards, that is the People's Choice SDGs Awards. This category recognizes outstanding individuals and organizations that have contributed to the advancing of sustainable peace and development. It is a testament to the power of collective support and engagement as we invite the global community to participate in celebrating these visionaries and change makers. Further, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the esteemed leadership of John Jay College of Criminal Justice for their gracious hosting of the SDGs Conference 2023 and over the past years. I also would like to express our deep gratitude to our esteemed global partners for their unwavering support. The SDGs Conference has been a beacon of progress for the last 7 years, and it wouldn't be possible without their steadfast commitment. Allow me to extend our heartfelt appreciation to our global partners today. Please give a round of applause to all these global partners. In closing, I would like to reiterate the dedication of the Journalists and Writers Foundation, together with our global partners, to remain committed to the SDGs and the broader pursuit of global peace and prosperity. As we embark on this 8th annual SDGs conference, let us remember that our collective efforts have the potential to reshape our world for the better. By working together, we can turn the challenges we face into opportunities for a brighter future. Thank you very much for joining us today. I look forward to the enlightening discussions and collaborations that will unfold over the course of this conference. Together, we can make a lasting impact on our global journey towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mehmet. Our first keynote today is the permanent representative of Maldives to the UN, Her Excellency Ambassador Thilmeeza Hussain, joining us online. Before her current post, Ambassador Hussain was a key member of the Foreign Relations Committee, where she maintained close relations with the government of the United States and other agencies to garner support for the restoration of democracy in her country. She has been also a champion of climate change and sustainable development agenda. She was the lead negotiator of the Maldives at the UN Conference on Sustainable Development and co-chaired the Sustainable Working Group for the 48 members of Alliance of Small Island States.
Excellencies and friends, I'm deeply honored to stand before you at the 8th Annual SDGs Conference. I express my heartfelt gratitude to the Journalists Writers Foundation for allowing me the opportunity to address this dynamic assembly. As we embark on the last decade to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda, it is important to acknowledge the contribution of freedom of expression, press freedom, and access to information for the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals. Journalists, your role in advancing the 2030 Agenda is crucial. You wield the power of the pen and the lens, standing on the front lines of truth, justice, and accountability. You are the voices of the marginalized and the oppressed. You serve as the watchdogs of society and have the power to hold governments and businesses and organizations accountable. The role of journalists in bridging the gap between information and action is indispensable in building a more sustainable and equitable world. Excellencies, friends, Let us take a moment to reflect on the state of affairs unfolding around us. The poison of conflict and warfare continues to infect our world. Poverty, hunger, discrimination, and inequality continue to haunt us. With Hurricane Lee wreaking havoc in various regions, wildfires in Hawaii claiming more than 100 lives, and uncertain high tide patterns affecting low-lying islands like the Maldives, planet Earth is sounding the alarm of climate disaster, climate emergency. We are facing greater risks than ever before, and we need bigger players to do their part. Climate journalism plays a vital role in driving this change. Climate journalists have been diligently uncovering the disparities between commitments and actual actions. Your reporting empowers the public, fostering their ability to call for transparency, accountability, and substantive climate efforts from their leaders. Excellencies, friends, I wish I could be there in person today. But I'm currently in the Maldives preparing for the upcoming second round of presidential election in just 10 days. Despite being a relatively young democracy, the Maldives has embraced democratic values, including the promotion of press freedom. The current government has made significant progress in preserving democracy, upholding the rule of law, and ensuring freedom for journalists. Since taking office, President Saleh has been committed to advancing press freedom. Despite historically low rankings for media freedom in Asia, the Maldives rose by 48 positions in the World Press Freedom Index in 2021. That was just within 3 years of taking office. We are committed to continuing our progress. As we gather here today, we must also acknowledge the progress towards SDGs has been uneven, and in some areas, disappointingly slow. We must build new momentum towards the SDGs, and this can be achieved through meaningful partnerships. Our partnerships must be inclusive, involving not only governments, but also civil society, academia, youth, and private sector. As the co-chair of the preparatory committee of the 4th International Conference on Small Island Developing States, set forth for the upcoming year, Maldives is committed to forging these partnerships while formulating the next 10-year program of action for SIDS. We believe diverse perspectives and expertise are essential for innovative solutions. Excellencies and friends, let us reaffirm our commitment to these goals. Let us foster partnerships that ignite a new momentum, and let us leave a legacy of hope and progress for future generations. I wish you a very successful conference. Thank you.
We have our next keynote in the room with us, Ambassador Dr. Carlos Garcia, Secretary General of the United Nations Association of El Salvador. Prior to his current position, Ambassador Garcia was the permanent representative of El Salvador to the UN and served at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as the Director of Multilateral Affairs, and he was the Chief of the Caribbean Affairs. The floor is yours.
Thank you and good morning to everyone. Excellencies, dear friends, I would like to start just quickly thanking our dear guests this morning for the opportunity to address you quickly on this issue. The main topic that I would like to talk on this regard is how to build a new momentum towards the 2030 deadline for the SDGs. At the beginning or at the outset, allow me to acknowledge the long-term impact of COVID-19 at social, economic, and political areas that poses important challenges for many countries around the world and contributed negatively to the deteriorations of several indicators in healthcare system, or healthcare programs, particularly in developing countries. You may know, or you may be asking why this is connected to the SDG. Well, let me tell you that this negative impact goes directly and affects negatively the SDG 3, which is the good health and well-being. Therefore, the negative impact of this pandemic continue to pose an important challenges for many countries around the world. And therefore, you may find out one clue to understand the lack of commitment in that area. But more than that, there's no doubt about it that this negative impact of the COVID has also impact other diseases such as the malaria and including increased epidemic risk and challenges for epidemic control. This is one important fact that we need to consider when we address this issue. But more than that, and nevertheless, new challenges are arising from unexpected factors that have been consolidated in the last 5 years, in my view, namely a global trend of contraction of the globalization as a phenomenon and the emerging forces around regionalism. And this is creating a real impact from a geopolitical strategy and point of view that needed to be considered as part of the new challenges in the implementation of SDGs. And as well, you may be asking why the geopolitics has an impact on SDGs. It is clear that it's fully connected with the number one, SDG 17, dealing with the global partnership that goes beyond only public-private partnership, but also in the interstate or intergovernmental relationship that, of course, has created new challenges and issues that need to be considered when we address the issue of SDGs. The reality on the ground shows us that the international community is moving back for a strong regionalism under the leadership of three main pillars or three main legs, namely the United States of America, Russia, and China. Therefore, or consequently, a significant number of setbacks can be explained by a change on the priorities at national or at the national interest in countries like in Africa, Latin American, and Southeast Asian countries. This is a very important topic that I will invite you to consider, since moving back from a global or a globalism phenomenon and going back to a regionalism implies not only a change in the mind of political leaders in country, but also affects national priorities. Therefore, and this is one of the observations that I like to leave for you to consider in this debate, is that even though we're moving back to a regionalism, there will be an opportunity for SDG agenda to have or to be in track for the implementation or full implementation by 2030, but need to be fully aligned with national priorities. Otherwise, it's going to be a waste of our time. From a global perspective speaking, of course. Yesterday, in the context of the general debate of the UNGA 78, the president of El Salvador, His Excellency Mr. Nayib Bukele, presented the successful case of El Salvador. I invite you to Google the statement of President Nayib Bukele, so you may have a full understanding on what I'm going to say right now about, which is precisely, I will say, the key to understand the main point that we're addressing here, which is strengthening institutions and political commitment for the timely achievement of the SDGs. And the story goes this way. El Salvador was at the top number one of the countries who was considered the most dangerous for high level of criminality and also for, of course, assassinations, murders, extortions, and several other crimes. In the context of 4 years after a changing in the paradigm of understanding a very fundamental topic within the United Nations, which is human rights, El Salvador currently has become the safest countries in the whole American continent. Now, how can you explain this shift coming from the dangerous country in the hemisphere to the safest one? And this, of course, is fully connected to the SDG as well, SDG 16, dealing with justice and peace, because it's fully connected with our national interests and priorities. That's the reason why El Salvador covering this particular aspect of their national interest simultaneously is able to connect with the SDG 16 and at large with the SDGs as a whole. Now, having said that, what we are proposing for consideration as a new factor to be included in the measure that can be taken by different other governments in order to create this momentum towards 2030 will be to create a harmonic combination of national interests together with the SDGs. If any country is not able to connect the SDG agenda with their own national interest, there will be a waste of time, waste of money, because not even political interest from the government, but also, and this is the most important, and that's the reason why I'm happy to tell you this audience, even with the civil society. It is supposed to, the role played by civil society in any country is to contribute to improve conditions or living condition of the particular society. But if we are following the SDGs as it was written in a stone, like 10 commands, we're going nowhere. It has to be fully connected with the national interest. And of course, every country has its own particularities. We cannot expect countries to just simply commit to the 17 goals if we are seen as a 10 commandment. It needs to be seen as a roadmap. And if we see the SDG as a roadmap, then we have a chance to expand and to flow with the national interest, and therefore be in a better position for not only implementing but also to fulfilling other areas of interest, such as financing for development, but also on the political participation of national institutions, civil society, and private sector. Because at the very end, nobody is going to invest in any country that is still suffering from criminality, in the case of El Salvador. But also, if your country is in a different position and different level, nobody is going to do their best contribution if they feel they are just simply following an agenda that has been created outside their own interests. And this is a key point that, in my view, needs to be considered. And finally, of course, with this idea of aligning national objectives with the SDGs and the role of financing for development, it's give me back to the idea that I mentioned in terms of how geopolitical approach is creating an interface or creating an impact on the implementation of SDGs, because all issue of financing is connected to how a country is perceiving this area of interest, which country or in which legs your country is located, under the umbrella of the United States, under the umbrella of Russia, under the umbrella of China. Can we create a common agenda for all of us? Perhaps, but not, in my view, in the way in which the SDGs were negotiated. It was a different political context. And we can see this, unfortunately, as in a similar case when the UN addressed many years ago how to change or revitalize the United Nations, in particular Security Council. We know that it has been an impossible task. I always say as a joke that the only way in which the Security Council is going to be changed is when Third World War is over. Now the problem will be who's going to be alive to form a new United Nations organization. But then we need to see that as part of an important understanding of how international community works and how the UN can contribute to development of a common agenda, but need to be, again, in full connection with the national interest. Thank you very much.
Dear participants of the SDG conference, dear partners of the Journalists and Writers Foundation and John Jay College of Criminal Justice, Thank you very much for inviting me to speak at this very important event. As we all know, the SDG confirms that gender equality is a sine qua non for sustainable development and attainment of all the SDG agenda. However, the recent reports show that unfortunately SDG 5 and gender equality agenda is on the regression ends. And this is very unfortunate that this is exactly the time when the whole world needs much more equality and much more empowerment. In this very important time, it is actually critical for all of us to also understand what actually goes well, what really works. And that's why I want to show you and share from our journey of UN Women Kyrgyzstan country office on how we are transforming the attainment of the SDG 5 at the country level. So here in front of you, you will see in a schematic way how we have been testing, how we can rethink how we work with partners and engage them into development agenda. And further in the slide, starting from here, I will be going deeper into some of the key findings. So first of all, it was absolutely critical for us to create new and safe spaces for partners so that they dive together and have a deeper understanding about the complexity and have an urgent sense of purpose on advancing together on the gender equality, women's empowerment agenda. So once we have created this space, it was absolutely critical that partners start to accept totally different worldviews of each other when it comes to gender equality agenda. And it was absolutely critical that with this acceptance, they start to talk and negotiate about what is common in their agenda, what is common in their vision that would bring them together around gender equality agenda. Once it is done, then we come to a very important step, which is called shared risk, shared responsibilities, resourcing, and of course, benefits towards the common goal. And these 4 steps were absolutely critical and essential, and we have achieved very concrete results of bringing partners together with these 2 very important elements. And these elements are about new facilitation tools and about new social norm holders. So having these 2 in this particular space, meaning in other words, if we are talking about making some transformative changes in the lives of survivors of violence, we need to have women survivors of violence who speak up, who have gone through the problem stage to the solution stage, together with the facilitators of the new tools, those who help and create new norms and new dialogues around the table with the partners. And when we have tested these approaches, it basically helped us to build this whole house of the transformative change, whereby then we actually were able to achieve wonderful results. And some of the key results I could actually already give an example of is even during 2 to 3 months, we could increase a number of women who are speaking out about their violence experiences, or women living with HIV, 10-fold. And these documented experiences we'll be happy to share further with all of you. So here are our contacts. Please contact us and reach out to us, and we will be very happy to have this conversation further with you. So I wish you all a very productive conference and looking forward to the outcome. Thank you.